Hi there, I'm down here in South Devon again at Eastleigh Farm. I'm very lucky to have here with me Heather Moffett from Enlightened Equitation. Today we're going to be looking a little bit more in depth into the retraining of ex-racehorses, and in particular looking at the French classical system and perhaps why their breed and temperament may be more suited to this style. So, looking at Monty, I mean, he's beautiful, and it is one of those, here's one we made earlier.
Yeah, very much so. Kay's owned him now for 8 years, and she'd had him for 4 years before she came here. And when he first came, she'd been doing sort of pretty much little bit of everything with him, and was working as a groom for the master of one of our hunts down here. So she was hunting him and doing a little bit of dressage, a little bit of show jumping. But he was still lacking a lot in top line and musculature and you know, other than the basic education. But Kay had chosen him as much as anything too because he had really good paces. And so consequently she wanted to start him on a sort of, what should I say, a more advanced dressage route. So Kay, when she first started to work for me here, first thing we did was change the saddle because she'd had all sorts of saddle fitting problems despite having professional saddle fitters all the time. So we put him into one of my Vogue soft tree saddles, and he's actually gone up the equivalent of 5 treed saddle sizes now. And he's gone from, you know, basic walk, trot, canter, a little bit of leg yield and, you know, a bit of shoulder in, to actually starting piaffe and working towards passage. So he's changed completely in his musculature as well. And he won his first retraining of racehorses class last year and has qualified for the championships. So, yeah, we're really pleased with how he's coming on. He's now actually coming up 15 years old. And so you can see how even a sort of middle-aged horse as such is still improving drastically. So,
yeah, he looks very young in stature, certainly.
Yeah.
But what is it about the thoroughbred, and I suppose ex-racers in general, that you think maybe lends itself to your style of training in particular?
Yeah, very much so. If I didn't have Iberians, I'd have other ex-race horses because I feel they've got the sensitivity, the lightness, the sharpness, and you know the overall look once they're, you know, muscled up, etc. Very elegant horses, and elegance is the key word really of French classical equitation as well, and working as much with the horse in an invisible way. And so, you know, for me, the thoroughbred has all those attributes. And, you know, it's just a shame that more ex-race horses don't end up doing this sort of work. And is why I'm particularly excited to be working with you, with some of yours as well, because I can really see that we can put the ex-racehorse on the map again. And, you know, lots of ex-race horses hunt, they show jump, and they do dressage, you know, they do dressage to quite reasonable levels. But I still think that the German system of training is actually a little bit more, it's more forgiving.
In terms of the rider?
In terms of, yeah, and the rider needs to have the sort of skill that you're seeing here with Kane now. Very, very quiet seat and very, very refined application of the aids. And so, you know, otherwise the horse just ends up getting confused. And because they have got a more, generally probably a sharper nature, this is where a lot of people end up going wrong with them, because they buy a horse that's cheap and pretty, and they think they're going to be able to ride it.
So the German system would actually be more forgiving for the less able rider than the French system?
Yes, I do feel that is the case. You know, you can get away with... It's a shame in some respects to vilify the German system, because when it's well done, it's probably will achieve pretty much the same results as the French system. But I think that it has been, what should I say, it's been bastardized to a certain extent, and people are using a much stronger aiding system than the original German system would have employed. And so, but I do think that it's a lot less forgiving for the rider, the French system. The French system, you have to be able to sit in the way that Kay's sitting at the moment, so that you're absolutely able to feel everything that's going on underneath you. You can make very, very small adjustments very lightly. And, you know, I think that it is a system that does take more skill, but it's much more rewarding in the long run, because you've got this incredible lightness in the hand from the pelvic tuck that we're looking to engage the pelvis rather than just the hind leg. And this has been particularly interesting, actually, this last week or so with Maxine's Frisian kite, because they have a tendency to kick out behind. And so we have to use almost a different system with them.
They're very abrupt, aren't they, in front?
But really kick out a lot behind. Whereas a good thoroughbred like Monty, you know, he's got great hock flexion. He's got quite a naturally slightly sloping pelvis. And so it makes it quite easy for him to tuck under. And that's, you know, quite often the case with particularly ex-flat race horses, I find. So, yeah, I would say that there's a lot of very good ex-race horses out there at a very cheap price if people would learn to ride them with the finesse that they deserve. So
perhaps, I mean, I've read your book, Enlightened Equitation. I've read the old one and I've read the new one.
Yeah.
And that to me is just such a superb resource for people. And nowadays, there's no excuse for people not to be informed.
Yeah.
You know, because the access to information is better than it's ever been before.
Oh, yeah, you know, with the internet and Facebook and everything too. But I think so many people are being taught still by instructors who say, oh, well, you have to mess up your position until the horse is going well. Nothing could be further from the truth, because the rider's going to cock up the horse's general ability to be able to function. If they're opposing the movement, the horse is having to compensate for them all the time. And so for me, that's the most important thing, that the rider learns to work in sync with the horse. And, you know, with an ex-racehorse, they're going to object because they are very sensitive horses. And your average cob might put up with it a bit more easily, but a lot of racehorses will just say, no, this is not on, you know? And so I think that's where a lot of them do end up bad, and it's a shame because they're often horses with tremendous potential.
And don't forget the breeding. I mean, thousands and thousands of pounds spent to breed these machines, you know, for want of a better description. And the same money in a warm blood, you know, and in the wrong hands would be just as dangerous.
Well, you look at your new horse, Major Bellarmine, Dave. I mean, he's got the sort of paces that any warm blood would have.
Sure.
And he's got the conformation as well. And, you know, I really look forward particularly to working with him.
It's lovely. Just has the orange temperament.
Yeah, he can have the orange temperament too. We have Spanish stomp instead of Spanish walk on occasions. And, you know, he can be quite, when you're teaching him something new, you've got to be very subtle with him, or he can get quite easily upset still. But that's what you have with a horse that's got a lot of blood. You know, he's not a cold blood, he's a hot blood. And so you've just got to work with what you've got. And when you do, well, you can see the rewards here. With a horse like this that cost all of £1,200.
Absolutely.
You know, you've got a horse here that actually now it's probably worth quite a lot of money. So, you know, just with the actual work that we've put into him and Kay's put into him, he's now working towards, you know, a much more advanced level of dressage. And whilst we haven't competed him that much, it's time more than anything else. We're not against competition, quite the contrary. And it's just trying to get the time to get out there. And down here in the southwest, it's a bit short on the higher level competitions as well. So yeah, you know, it's something that I feel that it would be lovely to see more horses out there, ex-race horses, competing at higher levels.
So if you could kind of speak to every wannabe ex-racehorse owner or people that have just kind of bought their first and that they're looking for somewhere to start, what advice would you give them?
Learn to ride properly. That's my definite first thing that I would say is you need to learn to ride, to sit correctly so that you're not impeding the horse, to learn to apply aids that are invisible. They're clear to the horse, but not visible to the onlooker. And I think that's something that should be changed in dressage tests. Instead of saying the aid should be applied clearly and effectively, avoiding unnecessary movement, it still, I think, gives the impression that you should be able to see the aids, applying aids clearly. Whereas if you said the aid should be visible, clear to the horse but invisible to the onlooker, I think that would be a much better way of...
You get marked down for using your voice, you know, but you don't get marked down for giving it a massive pony club kick.
Yeah, exactly, or a good yank in the back teeth. And so, yeah, I feel that the actual dressage rules, the marking perhaps should be in... And the other thing, too, I feel very strongly about is that the marks in dressage tests are nowhere near enough for the rider. Believe me, if the actual marks in dressage tests were doubled for the rider, they'd be bashing my door down to come and learn to ride better. And so I do think that that's something that really does need to be addressed. And particularly with horses as sensitive as the ex-race horse, you need to ride with finesse. That was a word my old trainer, Desi Laurent, used to use, finesse, harmony and finesse. And
absolutely.
that should be applied to all riding, you know, whether you're a good show jumper is lovely to watch, a good adventure
Absolutely.
is lovely to watch, you know.
Yeah, it's more than
When
just
you watch the
stillness,
likes
isn't
of
it? It's
Lucinda
dynamic.
Green going cross country, you know, it was poetry. And so for me, it's not just about, you know, riding dressage, it's about all forms of horsemanship. A good Western rider should be really nice to watch. So, you know, it's all about being with your horse and working with your horse, and never more so than with horses as sensitive as ex-racehorses. So,
Absolutely. Well, I'm really looking forward to obviously my lesson later, and also when you come up to us and
Yeah,
start working
I'm really
with one
looking
or two
forward
of
to that
mine.
as
It's
well.
going to be great.
yeah, really good. Very nice square halt there, K2.
And a huge thank you to Kay and Monty for showing us exactly what can be achieved when the correct foundations are in place. Join Heather and I next time when hopefully we can get started with some of my guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Join us next time.
Oh, exactly as we please.